Welcome to this lecture on adding and modifying objects in iBooks Author. Now in the previous lecture we talked about objects in general and we looked at the difference between inline, anchored, or floating object types. So what I wanted to do in this lecture is just go through the process of inserting objects and then how do we manipulate these objects, how do we copy them, how do we group them, and so forth. So of course, to insert an object you can simply select the option from the toolbar, or you can go to the insert menu and then choose the object that you want to add to your page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change to a different page that just has some text on it right now. I'm going to add a new shape. I'm going to go ahead and select the circle shape from the shapes drop down. I'm just going to resize it a little bit. And by the way, if you are resizing an object like a shape, it will not constrain proportions, so you can resize this however you want. If you want to keep that original shape, you can hold the Shift key down and then use the selection handles to resize the shape, and then it'll constrain proportions for you. So I'm going to go ahead and just move it around until I get it into the middle of the page. And you'll notice that iBooks Author is giving me some guides that help me out here. So I can tell that this is sort of the center of the page right now. And so I'll just drop this circle here. And you can see that it's causing some wrap with the text. Now I'll go ahead and add another image or another shape. I'll add a star this time. So here's my star. I'll just resize it again a little bit. There are different options with shapes that we'll get into a little bit later on. But I'm just going to move it so that it's sort of in line with the circle that I've added. And I'm going to copy this image. I'm going to go to my edit menu, select copy. That copies it to my clipboard. If I go to the edit menu again and select paste, it'll paste that object onto my page. Of course, I can use the Command C and Command V keyboard shortcuts to sort of speed this up a little bit. Now you'll notice that in addition to telling me that all the items, all these three shapes are in line, iBooks Author is also telling me the space that I have between the different objects. So right now I have 25 pixels between the two stars and the circle. So this looks like a good place to drop this. Now what I want to do is I don't want this to cause the wrap that it's currently causing. So I'm going to select these multiple objects. The way that I do that is by selecting one object, holding the Command key down. Then I can select multiple objects, and I can now change different properties associated with these shapes all at once. So the first thing I want to do is remove the wrap. So if I go into my inspector, I go to the wrap inspector, I can choose to remove the option to have these objects cause the text to wrap. Okay, so now my stars and my circle are sitting on top of my text. What I want to do, the effect that I want to have is I actually want to put these behind the text. Now one way that I could do that is just changing the opacity of this shape. So if I go to my graphics inspector, down at the bottom I have the opacity property that I can manipulate. Now this is true for a lot of the objects that you add to your pages. So even things like images and widgets and so forth, you can change the opacity of any of these objects. So in my case, let me just put the slider down to, let's say, 40%. So that looks pretty good. It's kind of looking like the way that I want it to look, except the text obviously is a little bit lighter here. It's bluer than it is here, which is not exactly what I wanted. So what I want to do instead is actually push these shapes to the back of the text. And just the same as in PowerPoint and Word and other applications, we have the option to use the Arrange menu to send this group of objects to the back of the document. So I'll just select Send to Back, and it's quite subtle, but you can see now that the shapes are in fact sitting behind the text. Now the other thing I might want to do is I might want to group these items. So I can go to the Arrange menu again, and you can see there's an option here for me to group these. So now they'll be grouped as one single item, so if I'm moving them around it's a lot easier than having to select multiple items every single time. The other thing that I might want to do is I might want to lock this item, and what that will do is it'll prevent this object, or this, in this case this group of objects, from being modified. So if I select that lock option, you can see that the selection handles change. and they change to these little X's that tell me that this is a locked object. So I actually don't have the ability to move this around at all. If I want to undo that, or maybe at some point I have a locked object that I want to move or that I want to modify, I can go back into my Arrange menu and just select Unlock. And this is true for some template elements that you'll find as well. If you select something in a layout, for example, and you're finding that you can't modify a particular line or a particular design element, you're not getting selection handles, you're getting those X's, that means that that element is locked, and you simply need to go to your Arrange menu and unlock that item. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good sense of working with objects, how to copy objects, how to move them around, how to group them, and layer them. So that concludes our lecture on objects in iBooks Author.